Hello and welcome to the Business Today show. I'm Udayan Mukherjee. Women business leaders have worked their way up the ladder to the top of the heap in practically every profession today, whether it's finance or law or information technology. But there is still one area, manufacturing, where there is still relatively fewer names that you find from the women business leader space who have reached the top of the heap. My guest today is therefore unique in the sense that she took over a small chemicals company or family company when she was in her early 20s, and in the last decade and a half she's made it a real powerhouse in the chemical space and a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Vinati Saraf Mutreja, Managing Director and CEO of Vinati Organics, to this show. Vinati, great to have you on the show. How are you?
Doing well, Udayan. Thanks for having me and thanks for the lovely introduction. Just to correct you, I'm not really sure if I took over in my early 20s. I joined the company then. Took me 10 years to learn. I only became CEO a few years back, but okay.
Right. Now, when you took over in 2006, or when you joined the company in 2006, I should say, chemicals was looked upon as a fairly boring kind of a sector, polluting, looked upon as a basic commodity, very cyclical in nature, and it did not excite investors. But today, it must be one of the hottest sectors. Everybody wants to invest in it. Specialty chemicals is apparently a sector with great opportunity, and stock prices of all these companies have moved up manyfold. Is this hype or is this excitement justified, or do you think would you say it's a passing fad?
Yeah, Udayan, so you're absolutely right. When I first joined in 2006 and early on, chemical companies like ours would trade at a multiple of 10, 12, whereas pharmaceutical companies would trade, at multiples of 30, 40 PE. And I would meet analysts and ask them that why is it that chemical stocks are, valued so low? We may have better barriers to entry than some of the pharmaceutical companies. We are more specialized. Some of the chemical companies, we have higher margins, but there was no response. Pharma was the hype back then. But in the last 4 or 5 years, that scenario has changed. And you see now chemical stocks trading in India at 40, 50 multiples, whereas pharma maybe at 25, 30. I don't know how much of it is hype. Globally, still, chemical companies don't get such high valuations. I think what the world and what the stock market is expecting, or rather betting on, is a China plus one strategy. They are believing that a lot of the chemical industry will shift from China to India. A lot of products, the Indian chemical industry as of now is much smaller than the Chinese industry. And that's what the bet is, that the growth going forward, there will be a lot more growth, and hence such high valuations, I guess.
So we'll talk a lot about the sector and where Vinati fits in, but I want to start from the beginning, because I read that even back in the day when chemicals was not such a hot sector, you were always excited by chemicals. It's right from the onset in school. Chemistry apparently was your favorite subject. What was it? Was it the fact that you were around your father who had started a chemicals company? Where did this excitement for chemicals come in at such an early stage in your life?
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that's how it started. My father started this company around 1990 when I was 6 years old, and he has no chemistry background qualification. So I remember when I was 10, 12, he would come and ask me questions out of my chemistry textbook, and that's how the interest developed. I would go visit, both me and my sister, we would go visit the factory. It was an outing. It was a weekend getaway for us as a family. And that's how the interest built up. And by the time I was a teenager, I knew I wanted to study chemistry. I pursued chemical engineering and business. I started attending board meetings with him when I was 18, 19, meeting customers in the US actually. While I was studying there, doing my undergrad, he would come take me to meet some of our buyers. And hence, as soon as I graduated, after working for a few months in New York, I moved back and joined the company in 2006.
Now, you did mention at the start of the interview that you actually joined the company and you did not lead the company in 2006. While that may be true, The real growth in Vinati Organics has come in the last 15 years since you joined the company. So you must cut yourself some credit out there. But tell me, I mean, you were thrust into shaping the company at a very early age. So what were the things that you needed to deal with as you came in through the lens of an international education? What did you have to fix it to put it on the growth path?
See, in 2006, we were basically making two products, IBB and ATBS. Now, IBB, we were doing okay. We were selling mostly domestically, but we were making money there. ATBS was where we were losing money. It was a new product, new factory we had set up in 2002. So we had two challenges ahead of us: whether we shut down operations in ATBS or we had an offer to sell it to our competitor back then, because we were basically, the problem was we were unable to get the right quality. Now, ATBS is a very specialized monomer, and the even impurities at ppm level change its effectiveness, and that's the kind of issue we were dealing with. We had spoken to the Indian scientists or Indian technocrats who had some knowledge of ATBS, but it wasn't enough because no one had made that product India. I was able to convince a foreign consultant to help us, who streamlined our plant for us. So ATBS turned around. And before us, there were only two manufacturers for that globally, and both were charging very high prices. And so the customers were very willing to, were very welcoming rather, to test our products, approve our samples, give us trial orders. And ATBS just took off on a growth trajectory from a capacity of 1,000 tons. Today we have a capacity of 40,000 tons. We are market leaders. We have 65% global market share. One of our largest competitors exited the business 4-5 years back because they couldn't compete with us on price. Coming to IBB, now IBB also, like I mentioned, in 2006 we were selling only domestically, and 2007-8 was sort of the turnaround for IBB as well, because we managed to bag a long-term contract with a US customer, and our US competitor closed down their factory to make IBB. So even IBB sales doubled 2008 onwards. So these two products gave us the boost, and then it was just one thing led to the other. Then in 2011 we started making the raw material for ATBS, which is IB, which was not made in India back then, and we were importing it. Today again we are the largest manufacturer of IB in India. Then from IB, now we have further expanded our value chain and added products like butyl phenols, and now we will be getting into antioxidants. So yes, you're right. The growth has been phenomenal in the last 15 years, if one has to say.
Growth has been really spectacular. And I was speaking to somebody in the market about your company a while back, some time back, and they said, when we look at Vinati, we see a company which can keep doubling every 3 years. I said, wow, I mean, if you do it for a length of time, you can become a really large company. Do you think that's a fair, accurate expectation to have from you, that over the next 6-8 years, you can continue to do this kind of growth, double every 3 years?
See, I think the way we look at growth is that our volumes should grow 15 to 20% every year. Now, we make our capex plans or our projections and our business strategy according to that. As of now, we've invested in butyl phenols, in antioxidants. This year, actually, we will be growing 50% on a revenue basis year on year. But then again, because the previous year, because of COVID, there was no growth and sales were subdued. So growth is not linear. Every year you can't grow at 15%, but it happens in bulk. Suddenly you will have 2 years of no growth and then 2 years of amazing growth, and that happens in every industry. As of now, we'll do 1,500 crores in revenue this year. I expect to touch 3,000 crores in the next 3 to 4 years. Let's say 4 years, just to be conservative, maybe.
The issue with chemical companies inevitably is that they are linked to the world of commodities, and we are seeing incredible upheaval in the world of commodities over the last few months because of what's going on geopolitically and otherwise. And sometimes with commodity companies, a key raw material will go up in maybe 15, 20, 25% and the margins will vanish. Do you see yourself being able to navigate this landscape successfully, or is there a real and present danger of margins getting hit as this volatility in commodities persists?
See, now broadly speaking, definitely yes. All raw materials for the whole chemical industry comes from crude oil, and crude being what it is, prices of all most raw materials are going up. Now, how much which companies can pass it on again comes down to what your specialty is, what your niche is. We are thankfully in some of our products we have a formula based pricing where we are able to pass on a lot of that price increase, and similarly if the price goes down, if crude goes down, our end product price will also go down. And now another issue that the industry is facing is a logistics issue. Logistics prices have gone up 5 times over the last 1 year, whether it's freight costs to US to Europe, and somebody somewhere is taking the hit. Now, a lot of companies are obviously somebody's making money also. Shipping companies are making money. Companies that sell domestically and compete with imports, they are able to jack up their prices because import freights have gone up. Similarly, as commodity prices have gone up, chemical companies that are into more commodity type of chemicals, they are making a lot of money, but eventually this is not sustainable. That's my view. And I do hope at some point things will stabilize and go back to normal, because the more further down you are in the value chain, they are taking more and more hit on the margin, and this is not sustainable on a long-term basis.
The other issue, Vinati, is the issue of cyclicality. I mean, that is probably the reason why when you joined the company, chemical companies would trade at 10 PE multiple, and pharma companies, which are seen as less cyclical, would trade at 30 PE multiple. Has anything changed on that front, or is this still a boom-bust kind of a cycle in chemicals like it is in many commodities? Some years will be very good, and it will be followed by a lull of a few years again where the business is down in the dumps.
See, again, now, each chemical company is different. It's a very broad sector. There could be some products which are not cyclical. For example, if you make a chemical for the pharmaceutical industry, then by definition, like you said, it's not a cyclical product. It's not a cyclical industry, So it again depends what your product goes into. Specialty chemical companies will do fine, in my opinion, because they do have the ability to pass on the price increases, and there is less cyclicality in that business. And frankly, I don't think ever before the world has been so bullish on the chemical industry in India. So it's really the first time that this is happening. So, if it was a cycle, then you would say, okay, maybe in 2000 they were bullish, 2010 they were not, and now in 2020 they are. But it's really now that the India story is coming up in this industry, at least. And maybe because it's been so small over the last many years, and there is scope for growth, and there will be a shift from China to India.
This is another interesting point that you brought up, that it is still relatively small. The question for a lot of people is that, chemical companies start off small, then they get to a certain size, and then they are not able to often make that big leap, which a lot of these Sun Pharmas and Dr. Reddy's were able to do in pharmaceuticals. They became multi-billion-dollar franchises. Now, you have global dominance in 2 products, but those 2 products account for 70% of your sales. If you add a third product, it's probably 85%. Will you be able to diversify from these core products to become a really large company? Not a 3,000 crore company, but maybe a 10, 15,000 crore company.
See, again, now we've made antioxidants, butyl phenols. These 2 line of products combined itself will add about 900 crores in revenue for us. And but now to reach 10,000 crores, 15,000 crores in revenue, what the industry needs is a lot of consolidation, which has so far not happened in the chemical industry in India, in my opinion. It's very fragmented. It's still very promoter-owned and owner-driven, and everyone's satisfied with their line or basket of products. And when the consolidation starts happening, which we did see in pharma has been ahead as far as the M&A space goes compared to the chemical industry in India. That's when you will see the real big growth, or the companies becoming as large as you are expecting them to be.
Do you think about M&A actively at Vinati Organics? Because you use the phrase promoter-driven company. You're a promoter, but you're a professional as well. I mean, you studied overseas, you joined the company at a young age. So, I mean, the line is a bit blurred between promoter and entrepreneur or professional. So, do you think actively consider at the board level or the management level buying smaller companies and consolidating and becoming larger?
Yes, absolutely. We are shown deals. It's something we have looked at. Now, my big question really for M&A is what is it a strategic acquisition? What value add do we bring to the table? And because we are so niche, we are into such specific chemistries, what has made sense for our company's organic growth is to keep investing in our strengths and growing horizontally and or vertically. It's very difficult to find companies that are in the similar line of business as we are, and I don't mean just making chemicals. It has to be the same chemistry or similar processes, or there has to be some synergy over there, and that's what at least we've not found for our company specifically.
Time for a quick break on the show, but we shall return with Vinati Saraf Mutreja in just a minute.
Ebix Cash, हर खुशी के लिए काफी है.
So what are the symptoms really being seen in children suffering from COVID-19? Gastrointestinal symptoms, wheezing and fatigue are the most common symptoms being seen in kids. Also, the symptoms in children are generally mild and include upper respiratory tract symptoms like fever, running nose, throat pain, body ache and dry cough. Here's what doctors say.
Kids surprisingly are showing a lot of wheezing, which normally presents as wheezy bronchitis. In fact, there's a 6-fold increase in croup-like symptoms. So whenever parents notice a barking cough or a little bit of breathlessness, need not have fever. But if you have symptoms of a croup or laryngobronchitis kind of picture, please get your COVID test done.
Experts also advise vaccination for kids at the earliest, though opinion is divided on that. But continue to stress on COVID protocol and early tracking of symptoms. So parents and teachers in school need to be alert in what experts say. Moreover, MISC or multi-inflammatory syndrome in children, a fallout of COVID post-recovery, which is actually a rare ailment, has rarely been seen in the third wave of the pandemic or the Omicron wave. Such cases have not been seen in children yet, is what doctors are saying.
There are long-term implications. 26 worldwide studies as meta-analysis on Cochrane trial has shown 1 in 4 to 1 in 3 patients of all age groups have at least one symptom continuing on beyond 3 months of age. So we have to look out for the long COVID symptoms. Children are vulnerable to get what we call as multi-organ inflammatory syndrome, although it is rare, but children are still vulnerable. They need protection, but please, the schools now must stay open, but with precautions.
When it's the world's biggest news story, there's only one gold standard of journalism.
Welcome back. You've been watching the Business Today show. I've been in conversation with one of the top Indian business leaders in manufacturing, Vinati Saraf Mutreja, Managing Director and CEO of Vinati Organics. The other issue which keeps coming up, Vinati, with chemical companies and has traditionally is the issue of pollution, because it's been traditionally regarded as a hugely polluting industry, partly the reason why we're seeing a huge amount of pushback in China as well, with the kind of curbs they're putting on their chemical companies. Where does the Indian chemical space and Vinati in particular stand on that front, on the incredible amount of concern and pushback that we're seeing globally about polluting industries?
See, we have always been an advocate for clean and green chemistry. In fact, it is my father's belief that green chemistry is what is sustainable. It's actually lower cost because the amount you spend on effluents create more wastes. In chemistry there's something called atomic efficiency, which basically means you only input should be what you get as output and minimal waste generation. What we have done as a company is created a lot of value added products out of our waste streams, and this goes back 15-20 years back, and that was in fact one of the reasons why we were able to compete and reduce our costs against our customers, because they were just throwing away the waste stream, whereas we were making products out of it. And if more companies can, and now you do see more and more companies spending a lot of effort and time, R&D activities on creating value-added products out of the waste stream, because ESG has become, environment, safety, health EHS has become a concern. A lot of foreign customers are asking for all sorts of validations. I definitely see a lot of improvement. Again, the government has also become stricter in a lot of areas. It's not the same. You have to be compliant. You have to be one step beyond compliances, and eventually that will lead to you being more competitive also. So I think the chemical industry in India is on the right track. There are logos like Responsible Care. For example, there is an external foreign agency, EcoVadis, which global MNCs have formed, where they come and audit suppliers out of countries like India, and you have to get the accreditation. That people are talking of carbon footprints. These are our company, for example, 50% of our power requirement is now coming out of solar. We have set up 2 solar plants totaling about 13 megawatts. And a lot of other companies are also doing that. Coal prices went up and it became very high. So it also is also more cost effective, and it's very better for the environment.
It's so interesting for me to hear a woman leader speaking so passionately about manufacturing, because I speak to a lot of CEOs from various walks of life, various professions, but not specifically manufacturing. Do you think this is about to change, Vinati? I mean, what you've done over the last 15 years, is there something in the shop floor culture in India which could be changing, which enables more women to look at manufacturing as a career very seriously?
See, change happens from 2 areas. See, one, like you said, the shop floor culture. Absolutely, traditionally women have stayed away from these kind of industries because there are night shifts. When you go, and most of the manufacturing locations are somewhere in rural India or somewhere away from the cities, where doing that night shift is a deterrent. But now more and more corporates are encouraging such things. They're giving flexi hours, and but again, now we need more women to study engineering. And by engineering, I don't mean IT or software engineering. I mean mechanical or industrial or chemical engineering. And then we talk of the shop floor and the night shift. And the second area where the change comes from is from the top. As you will see, more women directors on the board, as you see more daughters or wives or sisters, as like I said, still a lot of industry in India is promoter driven, family owned. And once they start giving equal opportunity to both their sons and daughters in manufacturing industries, in which I am seeing, which is happening now in big, business houses, conglomerates, that's when women will get their inspiration out of. So these 2 areas is where change will come from. And abroad, you do see more women in the chemical industry or manufacturing, or you see a lot of women in purchase, sales, even CEOs. And I think the next 10-15 years, this number will go up in India as well.
If a young woman is watching you today, what would your advice be to her about the pros and cons of taking up manufacturing as a real career option versus going into services like finance or IT or law or something like that, where you don't dirty your hands? What would you say to her?
See, I'll tell you first with the pros. What I like about the manufacturing industry, it's actually a very non-judgmental industry. And what I mean by that is, as long as your product is good, as long as you're good on price, quality, that's all that matters. You just have to know your work. There's nothing else. Like maybe in media you need to look a certain way, maybe in the services industry you need to speak a certain way. This is a very numbers driven industry. So if you're a more black and white kind of person, then it's a great industry to be in. Because I personally felt, yes, apart from the fact that most times you're the only woman in a room, but if you know your work, if you know what you're saying, if you know what you're doing, only results matter. Nothing else matters beyond that. Now, the cons is, yes, it can get lonely sometimes, especially when I started 15 years back. It is changing now. You will see more women, but it's still a minority. If you're in financial services or if you're in media or other industries, that you will have more women colleagues. So these are some things one can consider. But in the end, it's more about your passion, right? What you are interested in, what you are good at, what you want to do. And then you sort of work your way around it.
You say it gets lonely sometimes. So who were the role models you had, Vinati, over the last decade or so? The people you looked up to for inspiration when it did get lonely?
See now, my father has been my mentor and my role model when it comes to business. I have learned everything about business from him when it comes, just his passion. Today, like I had mentioned earlier, he never studied chemistry, but today he can have a debate on chemistry with PhDs, with engineers. So his passion for the subject. He's his very sharp business acumen. He's a self-made entrepreneur, started from scratch. So just that combination of business and technical knowledge is something that I really admire. Now, speaking of women inspirations, the one person I really look up to is Kiran Majumdar-Shaw. She's also in a pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, and she's a global entrepreneur. So definitely, I draw a lot of inspiration from these two people.
I'm sure Kiran would be very happy to hear that. It's been great talking to you, Vinati, today. You've been a real trailblazer in the manufacturing sector, and I wish you continued and much greater success in the years to come. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Udayan. Have a nice day. Thanks.
We have tested that on large animals, sheep and pig, and that data shows that the technology is safe for use. In fact, that data has been shared with the FDA, who have granted us 2 accelerated designations last year for the first 2 conditions we want to treat. For localized conditions such as cancer tumors, stroke, atherosclerotic plaque buildup, localized pain, and many other conditions, there is a real need to have a microrobotic, precise, remote-controlled mechanism that can treat a condition only at a specific point and nowhere else.
प्रेजेंटेड बाय ईबिक्स कैश, हर खुशी के लिए काफी है। को प्रेजेंटेड बाय CoinDCX, योर गेटवे टू क्रिप्टो।
You are watching India Today.